Good afternoon, Dr. Vasquez. This is my presentation on the SARS-CoV vaccine, and for this I chose an active attenuated vaccine. So where did COVID-19 come from? It's said that COVID-19 originated from Wuhan. There are speculations that it originated from the Wuhan supermarket where a variety of animal meats are sold for consumption, and the first person might have contracted it from an infected bat. This speculation is argued by different scientists, and the reason for that is because at the time that the virus broke out, bats weren't sold on the market, and instead some scientists speculate that it was contracted by an animal called a pangolin, which are also known as scaly anteaters. The reason for this, like I said, is because bats weren't sold on the market at this time. So that's why it's being argued right now that yes, it's by bats, and then some are saying no, it's not by bats. So how was it discovered? So the Wuhan Municipal Health Commissions began to report several cases of pneumonia, and it began to raise concern because there were so many people rapidly contracting pneumonia, and they just begin to research it and said, this has to be more than pneumonia. There's way too many people contracting it in such a short amount of time. And then that's when the novel coronavirus was identified. So have coronaviruses always existed? And if so, how is COVID-19 different? So yes, coronaviruses have always existed. Another example of coronavirus is the common colds. COVID-19 differs from all the other common coronaviruses because of how it affects the human body. It primarily attacks the lungs, but it can begin to branch out and affect different parts of the bodies. So if it succeeds in attacking the body, it can begin to shut down vital organs, and it can possibly cause pneumonia, it can cause hospitalizations, it can cause intubations, causing someone to be on a ventilator for days, months, weeks at a time. And ultimately, if none of that treatment that doctors are trying to help, it can lead to death. The people who do recover from COVID-19 are experiencing long-term side effects, and even some who never had health issues before are currently starting to see health issues from contracting coronavirus. So briefly explain why a vaccine is necessary. I believe a vaccine is necessary because of how deadly this virus is. It's more deadly than the flu, and I think we need to get it under control and learn, not only to learn how it's working and how it's mutating, but to get the spread under control. Looking at rates, not even knowing if these rates are accurate, because a lot of people might not have reported it. We just need to get this thing under control. We need to learn how it mutates. We need to slow this spread down so that we can get ahead of the research and learn how, if we can treat it, if it's possibly curable, and therefore if we get ahead of it, we're in the long run preventing deaths. So choosing a vaccine. The type of vaccine that I chose is an inactive attenuated vaccine. And the reason that I chose this vaccine is because I believe that exposing the human body rather than sheltering the human body from it will have a better outcome than just injecting a vaccine that will kill the virus and that's it, you're better. I think that we need to introduce the immune system to this. That way it gives it time to register it and saying, okay, now I know what this is. It's nothing that we can't battle, and we are giving our immune system and every human body's immune system time to adapt to it. So the experimental phase. To begin my experimental phase, obviously I would need volunteers. So I would ask for those volunteers. I would want to have 2 control groups. I would want to have one control group that has never contracted coronavirus, and I would want one that has been infected with coronavirus, who has already recovered from that. The reason that I want these 2 control groups is because I want to see how well the previously infected volunteers, how their immune system reacts to the vaccine, in a sense of, okay, we've seen this virus before, how we know how to fight it off, we know what to do, and okay, our body has those memory cells, so we're going to continue on. And I want to see how the people who haven't had COVID-19 in their systems or have never been exposed to it, I want to see how they deal with the injection. You know, are they going to get sick? Are they going to have severe side effects? Is it going to be kind of just like the flu shot, where it's like, okay, we get a little bit of, we do get sick, but it's just small, not severe symptoms, you know, kind of like this, like the common cold, like maybe a runny, stuffy nose, a little bit of fatigue, but nothing that is, you know, completely out of the ordinary that you can't handle, you know, just maybe a day home from work or school, maybe not even, maybe you can continue on to your day, you just might feel a little bit out of it that day or for the next couple of days. So how will this vaccine work? I believe this type of vaccine will work, and because of this, we will be introducing, like I said, we will be introducing this virus furthermore into the population, and it's not going to be such a foreign thing that, you know, all these deaths are going to be happening. Instead, my purpose to this is to introduce it and for it to become, I don't want to say like the flu, because I still feel like the flu can still be a little bit deadly, but I want it to end up being, you know, similar to that or to the common cold, you know, something that, you know, people aren't going to be afraid to go out and be like, you know, I don't want to get sick, I don't want to, you know, go to the store for groceries and end up being like, well, a week from now I'm ending up in the hospital or possibly dead. So we just want to introduce this virus to all the human population, and you know, it's not going to have the ability to attack, because we are inactivating its ability to replicate. Our main goal is just to introduce, like I said, to have memory cells. Just removing the part of the virus that gives it the ability to replicate. I considered doing a kill vaccine, but then that would essentially mean injecting people with the live virus, and we kind of don't need that right now. I feel like that would have more of a worse outcome, and people would end up, you know, not being able to battle it, and essentially we're just infecting other people and not having a positive outcome. So that's why I went with this vaccine. So the potential problems and my conclusion to this: with any vaccine, with any medication, with, you know, anything that we're introducing that is to help a human in any sort of disease, any sort of illness, there's always side effects, or there's always a possible fail. So with this, I considered, you know, the vaccine could completely fail. It either makes people more sick, it doesn't do anything, and they still end up contracting the virus. There's negative side effects, you know, people are still, like I said, still getting sick. It's like completely just injecting them straight on with the virus. We don't want that. We want to lessen that. If they do get sick, you know, people can always have an allergic reaction to any sort of medication, any sort of type of vaccine. My fear is that we won't be able to supply enough of the vaccine to every citizen in the world. So I think that's a potential problem that we could run in with the vaccine. You know, it can always be, hey, it works, but we don't have enough of the resources for it. And number one to me was, we don't have enough funding. So I looked into this, and I know that in order for you to get funding, you have to show positive results. You can't just keep posting these negative results, because then nobody's going to want to fund it. So if it were to end up having positive results, but, you know, funding is just running out, because at this time the world is in a hardship, and, you know, everyone's battling for money, and, you know, if worse were to come to worse in my, you know, hypothetical situation, I would just be like, okay, well, maybe we need to fund somehow, community funding, personal funding, you know, look into these bigger corporate places and asking for funding, you know, because at the end of the day, it's not just something for marketing, for selling, it's for a long run. It's to help better everybody's life. Okay, so my conclusion to this is if our vaccine were to fail, the only option is to restart the testing phase. Maybe try out other options for the vaccine types, like how I mentioned earlier, how I said I considered a kill vaccine, but completely steered away from that. Like if we were to run out of funding, campaign for it, fundraising, and if the vaccine were to make people more ill than protect them, then we would need to go back to the research phase. I feel like there's no other option. We disabled the virus wrong, and we need to go back and redo that completely scratch everything and just go back to the board and say, hey, you know what? We need to start this process all over again. And testing has to come to a halt. We need to start everything all over again, get rid of, scratch that batch of vaccines and just do it all over again. So, going back to the beginning, I'm sure was something that a lot of these researchers had to do. A lot of these scientists had to start over multiple times. This virus is very new. It's not, coronavirus strain itself isn't new, but COVID-19 is. So I'm sure that a lot of these scientists feel the pressure to get something out there because it's only been a year since this virus has existed. And unfortunately, I think this is a virus that is going to be around for the long run and for the rest of our lives. I don't think this is a virus that we will eradicate. I think it is going to end up being like the common flu. I do believe it's going to mutate for as long as it's around, and we're just going to have to continue adapting to that. And I don't think that masks are completely going to be a thing that are temporary. I think that that's something that's pretty much going to be an accessory to us for the rest of our lives, and if not for the rest of our lives, for I would say maybe up to 5 years, maybe longer. But so these are my resources. This is where I got everything. I did use a lot of my information from the presentation that you presented us, but that's my presentation. Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. I enjoyed your class. I appreciate the time that you've given us, and hopefully I'll maybe take one of your classes in the future.